Hello everyone, my name is Bismarck Amano. I'm a software developer and a network engineer, currently diving deep into advanced networking and firewalls. And I'm really excited today because this is my really like my very first video I'm making on internet, right? Video tutorial. So on this channel, should I even call it a channel or just like a video? Yeah, basically anything. But then I'm going to be sharing practical hands-on networking tutorials to make concepts really simple and easy to understand, right? So I don't want you to have like really hard time understanding my tutorials and stuff, but really easy and simple. So today we are going to configure a DHCP server on a Cisco router. This is a really useful lab exercise if, for example, if you are preparing for your CCNA certification or want to understand how dynamic IP addressing works in real networks, right? So yeah, before we go into the coding and the configuration and stuff, I would like us to quickly understand what DHCP is. I made a post on DHCP. I really dive deep in that post, right? But it's really simple and easy. I'm going to leave the link to that post in the comment section of this video or this tutorial. So check it out and come back and watch this video. That's really going to help. So I'm going to pause for like 2 seconds so that you go and check that post out and then come back so that you can really understand this tutorial. Okay, welcome back after that 2 second break, right? So DHCP stands for Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, and it was birthed in the year 1993. That means before 1993, IP addresses were assigned statically. Can you imagine? That was like crazy. I think that was why we didn't have a lot of network engineers at that time, and those who joined networking like up to date, we have a lot of them that are really old that are still like network engineers and stuff. And I can understand that because that would be like a really boring task to do. Imagine your work for the day was to assign IP addresses to 200 devices within the network. That would be like, dang, that's crazy, right? But then DHCP came into the picture 1993, and that saved the day. And what does it do? Basically, DHCP automatically assigns IP addresses, subnet mask, and gateways to devices on the network. So this simple activity or action of the DHCP saves time, reduces manual errors compared to static IP address assignments, and then gives the network engineer ample time to do whatever they want to do, you know. So yeah, that's a little brief about DHCP. So without much further ado, let's go right into the topology and the configuration for the day. Now, this is our topology. We have a really basic setup. One router, one switch, and 4 nodes. Our nodes include PC, which is one PC, one access point, one phone, and one printer. An access point is basically a network device that allows you to extend communication or connection wirelessly to other nodes or other devices on the network from a point where cable or copper connection wouldn't be able to extend to. So let's say you have an office setup and then you have other external, or sorry, not external, you have other devices at the far end of your office or something, and maybe you're out of copper cables or Ethernet cables, right? You bring in the access points to extend your network wirelessly to those devices. So those devices will end up connecting to the wireless point, and then the wireless point is going to relay their connection to the switch via the E1/3 interface we have right here, right? So that's just a short info about access point. But if you want me to make a video or a concept description of access point, leave that in the comment section and I'll be glad to do so. Now, our basic network is going to run using this network right here, which is 10.10.1.0 with a prefix of 24. That means that we have a lot of ample usable hosts that we're going to do. Now, by default, every router and every switch comes with a default VLAN of 1, okay, VLAN 1, okay, and that's what we are going to use. We are not going to set up, create our own VLAN and all those things. So we are going to use the default VLAN that has been assigned to us to do that. So this is our goal. If you look at the notepad that I have here, our goal is to configure DHCP on this network we have right here. Now, the task for us to do to configure our DHCP server and make sure that this goal is accomplished is that we are going to set up our DHCP server on router 1, which is this router here, and then we are going to set up SVI using the default VLAN 1 on switch 1 here. And the SVI is a switch virtual interface, and you're going to see what it does, but basically it allows us to assign an IP address to a virtual interface, which is a VLAN 1 right here, right? And then finally, we are going to assign we are going to configure the nodes. Let me clear that. So we are going to configure the nodes, which is the end devices, to obtain dynamic addresses from our DHCP server, okay? And then that will be it. Then we'll go on to the verifications. So for each of the devices that we configure, we are going to verify our configuration. So when we are done with the task for the router, we are going to verify if the connection and the DHCP was set up properly. On the switch, we are going to check if the IP address has been assigned to the right VLAN, and then also to check if the port has been opened and all the interfaces are connected on that VLAN. And then for the nodes, we are going to do a ping after we assign a DHCP IP address to each of them, right? So that is our task and our goal for today. Now let's go to the console. Now I'm using GNS3 for this, basically for all my lab work and stuff, right? GNS3 is a software that really helps us to simulate real-world networks using virtual interfaces, virtual devices like the virtual PC we have here, and this router and switch, right? So if you don't have that, you can install it. I'll leave a link to the GNS website where you can install it. They have really good documentation on how to get everything set up and run. All right. So yeah. Now, this is our console. To go to the console, you have to first of all start your devices. So use the start button here. I already have mine started. If you have some problems with your devices not starting, you can just click the reload and reloads everything and it starts it for you. So to go to the console, you click this icon right here, which is the console. You hover over it, you see like console pop up. You can click on the console and then it brings you to this interface that we have right here, right? So for our configuration, our goal is that first of all, let's look at the goal or the task. All right, so we're going to set up DHCP on DHCP server on the router 1. So that's what we're going to do. So let's go to our router in the console, and then we go into, so currently we are in the, I don't know what mode this is, but let's go into the privilege mode, and then go into the configuration mode by doing configuration terminal, which is this is a short form for configuration terminal. So conf T, right? And normally you would do a host, you have to set the host name. We call that the global configuration. You have to do the host name, do the no IP address lookup, and no IP domain lookup, sorry, and do all this enable secret and stuff. I don't want to do that now because our goal is just to set up DHCP server. And this is like a local, a basic setup. For more advanced concept, I'll do all those things, all right? So now we're just going to go into the configuration mode. We're going to look at this interface right here, and then we are going to configure our DHCP server on this router. So to do that, we're going to our interface, which is interface E1/0, right? You click enter, and we are now in this interface right here. This is the interface we are talking about. We are in this interface right here, and we are going to describe the connection that is going to communicate to switch 1 at E11. So we say switch 1 at E11, and this is a really good practice as a network engineer. Try as much as possible to describe your connections. Try as much as possible to define or describe your interfaces. This is going to be helpful to someone or another network engineer who comes to set up your network that you configured some time ago. Let's say you're not in that organization anymore, So yeah, this is a really helpful thing to do. Now you're done with our description. Now let's assign our IP address, right, to this interface. Remember, we are using the default VLAN. So whatever we do here is going to apply to that default VLAN. So we're going to assign our IP address. We say IP add, and we're going to use the first host, the first usable host, which is .1. So we're saying 10.10.1.1, and then our subnet mask is going to be 255.255.255.0. And then when you're done, you type no shut. No shut is underrated, but very, very important. It's crazy how you can have a whole network configured, but then because you didn't do a no shutdown, that's what it means. A no shutdown, your interface will just be up like that. Like it would be down, administratively down. That means that there was not going to be any form of communication coming to that interface. Therefore, your network wouldn't work. So that's why we do the no shut. So once you're done with your no shut, right, then we go ahead and do our DHCP configuration, right? So we're done with assigning the IP address. Now, this IP address that we have here, we are going to use as a default gateway, all right, or the default router. When you're doing a DHCP, we do a default router. When you go on the switch and you're doing a default gate, you do a default gateway. Okay. So let's go ahead and set up our DHCP. So to configure DHCP, you say IP DHCP pool. So what we are just saying is that this server should pull IP addresses for this VLAN. Okay. So we say VLAN VLAN 1. Okay. All right. So we have VLAN 1. Now we are going to set our networks. We are going to add the network. So our network for this DHCP is going to be 10.10.1.0, and then our subnet mask 255.255.255.0, and then press enter. Now we're adding this network so that this VLAN is going to use this network. Okay, so DHCP is going to use this network that we've given here to assign IP addresses on this VLAN. Okay, automatically. Okay, now we are going to exclude some IP addresses, so we'll do that very soon. But then we are going to set a lease time, which is a lease period, a period of time between which an IP address can be assigned to or can be held by a node or an end device. So if you set a lease time of 3 days, that means that if a DHCP IP address has been assigned to this PC here, this PC would hold that IP address, whether it's on or off, for 3 days. Okay, and then after that 3 days, that IP address will be released from it, and then DHCP is going to check again if another device is using that IP. If no device is using that IP, it's going to give it back to you. So please go and take a look at that post that I created on DHCP. I have explained everything in there, how that is even possible, right? Yeah. So let's set our lease time. So we're going to set our lease period of what? 3 days. By default, a lease period is 24 hours, which is something like lease 1, 0, or it can be lease 0, 24, right? But it makes sense to just say lease 1, 0. But by default, that's your lease period. But we are going to set it for 3 days, right? For the sake of this tutorial, okay? So we have set our lease period. Now let's do excluded IP addresses. So in the case where you type exit. So in the case where you have a set of IP address that you want to statically or manually assign to specific devices on your network, you want to reserve them, right, for specific nodes or specific devices on your network, considerably devices that regularly or usually don't change, right, or their locations don't change and stuff, or they are really prone to change. You want to reserve some IP addresses for them. Okay, or if you have any future use cases, you can also reserve some IP address for those use cases, right? So for this sake of this tutorial, I'm going to reserve 10 IP addresses or 10 hosts. So how to do that with DHCP is you type IP DHCP, then you say excluded IP addresses, right? And then you type the first IP address in that range, which is 10.1.1, which is our default gateway or our default router. In that case, which is this one that we assigned to the switch for VLAN 1, right? And then we are going to add the next one, which is the 10, the host number 10. So we say 10.10.1.10, okay? And then press enter. Now DHCP is going to exclude these IP addresses in this range when it's assigning IP addresses to these devices or any other device that later joins, okay? So that means that we can assign the IP addresses with these ranges to any other device that we want statically or manually, right? Okay, so now that we have done that, oh yeah, there's one thing I forgot. Let's go back and do that. So we say IP DHCP pool VLAN 1. And what I forgot was to set the default router. Okay, the default router on this. So I'll set default router here. So the default router is going to be our 10.10.0.1. Sorry, .1.1. That's our default router. And then we are done with our DHCP configuration. Now to verify, like our task in our how they call it, our notepad says, we have to verify on the router to make sure everything is set up properly. So to do that, we say show VLAN. So let's say not show VLAN, it's show IP interface brief, pipe excluded unassigned. Yeah. Now we are going to see that, okay, Ethernet E1/0 has been assigned this IP address, and most importantly, its status is up and its protocol is up. This is a really good news. That means that our no shuts down worked, and this means that this interface or this port, okay, this port right here is accessible and is open for communication and connection with this within this local area network, right? So that's a good sign. Now let's verify or check our DHCP configuration. So to do that, we say show run pipe section DHCP. Now we see that, okay, we have our DHCP server up. It has excluded these IP addresses and it's running on the VLAN 1. So we have one DHCP configured for VLAN 1. There are cases where you have to set up multiple VLANs, right? And in that case, that means you have to set up multiple DHCPs for each of those VLANs. So for this tutorial, we just have just one VLAN DHCP we are configuring. So it's on VLAN 1, and we have this network added here, and then default router here as well, and then our lease period. So we have a good news. That means our DHCP server has been configured the way we want it. Now that we are done with the router, the next thing for us to go according to our task, which is in the notepad right here, right, is to go onto the switch and set up our SVI, configure SVI. So let's do that. So let's go into the switch and then let's go into the privilege mode. Okay, and let's go into the configuration mode. Now we go straight because we are using the default VLAN. So we just go straight and do the SVI. So we say interface VLAN 1. That's how you go into the VLAN interface, right? And then we assign our IP address. So we say IP add. So 10.10.1.2 because we use 1.1 for our default router, right? Which is the default gateway, okay? And we are able to use the 2 because it's part of the excluded IP addresses that we did for our DHCP server. So we have .1 to .10 for us to be able to use or assign statically. After that, DHCP is going to use those ones to assign its IP addresses. Okay, so we have the .2 host for the switch virtual interface, which is VLAN 1, and then we are going to add our subnet mask of 255.255.255.0, and then we press enter, and then most importantly, okay, we say no shutdown, or simply no shuts, and this opens up that VLAN or switch virtual interface for it to be used or accessed by the rest of the network, okay, especially the nodes. All right, so now we are done with our SVI configuration on the switch. Okay, so we can end this and then verify what we've done, exactly like what our plan is. So we have to verify on the switch too as well, right? So now let's verify on the switch. To verify on the switch, we have to do our show VLAN brief, and this is going to show us a brief of what our VLAN looks like. So by default, we have our VLAN. Like I said, it's a default VLAN. So you see it here, default. So we have VLAN 1 as a default VLAN. And most importantly, we have all these interfaces, right? From E0 to E3, which is anything in this range right here, right? All these interfaces fall within this range. That means that our VLAN applies to this. So all the IP address, the hosts that we have assigned so far are going to be used by this. And so DHCP server is going to just use this VLAN 1 and then communicate or assign IP addresses to this nodes, okay, using the VLAN that we have by default here. Okay, now we can also see another thing. We say show interface status, and this is going to show us the status of each of the interfaces. So by default, the switch interfaces are connected, or they are up by default. Yeah, so there's nothing to worry about that. All right, another thing we can also verify is say show IP interface brief to see, and then we say section. No, we say exclude unassigned, and this is going to show us the IP address. So you see our SVI, which is VLAN 1, has been assigned this IP address, and most importantly, it's up. The status is up, and then the protocol is up. So that means that connection is opened. Okay, so yeah, so we are done for our switch. That means that we are left with our, according to our plan on the notepad, we are left with the configuration of the nodes to receive dynamic addresses, and then we verify each by pinging. So let's go on to our console, right? Let's go to the console, and then let's go to the PC4, which is the first device on the first node. Okay, so I'm going to clear this, right? Say clear. So you say clear IP to clear any previous configuration that you've done so far on whichever PC, in case you've been asked to configure a troubleshoot a network and you've done show IP to see where the errors or issues are. You can just clear that IP using this command, IP configuration using this command, right? Clear IP. So now let's assign our DHCP address, and this is where the magic happens. Guys, if you've not read the post of taking a look at the post that I made on DHCP, go and look at it, because what is about to happen is the magic of the whole thing. So to do the dynamic host assignment for each device, you just type DHCP and you press enter. Now DHCP is going to use a DORA protocol, and then DORA is going to do all the checking, everything that it needs to do to ensure that this device has a unique automatically assigned IP address. As you can see here, it worked. We can see PC4 has been assigned an IP address of 11, and then the default gateway is also here, the default router. Sorry. So anytime you do a DHCP and you don't see DORA, you might end up seeing something like a DDD or something like that. That means that your configuration wasn't done successfully, or probably your switch was on a no shut, so DHCP wouldn't work. Okay, the switch virtual interface was on a notion, so it won't work. So the IP, okay, and let's say DHCP. Now our PC and access point is also working, has a DHCP server running, right? So yeah, we have it here. Now let's go ahead and configure our phone to also have a DHCP. So say clear IP, and then we type DHCP, and then we're going to see the DORA. Okay, DORA is popped up, and then we're going to see it has been assigned an IP address of 13. And then let's go to the last device, which is a printer. We create the IP, right? And then we say DHCP. Awesome. So that also worked. Now we are going to ping all the devices, which is according to our plan for this tutorial. We're going to ping from each node, ping from one node to all of the other nodes and all the network devices to ensure the communication was successful. So first things first, we are going to ping our router from the printer. So first of all, let's just go to the PC4 and then ping the router from here. So we say ping, and our router's IP address is 10.10.1.1. So that's what we are going to ping here. And you can see we are getting some messages back. So it sent 84 bytes from 10.10.1.1. So that's the message it got from our router, which means the connection was successful. Now let's ping our switch, which is .2, and we should also get some information from there, and that's a really good news. Now let's ping the access point, then we'll go ahead and ping the phone and then the printer, and then we are done for the configuration. So we ping our access points, which is I believe 12. Yes, that worked. And then we are going to ping the phone next to ensure that communication is also successful, which is 13. And that also worked. That's a good sign. And then finally, we are going to ping the printer, which is 14. And that also worked. So yeah, guys, we just configured DHCP server on our home or basic topology or network. And then we've been able to assign IP addresses to each of them automatically using a DHCP server. We also set up our SVIs on the switch to ensure that that communication is successful, and the switch virtual interface is managing all those interfaces within that VLAN 1. Okay, so that's what we did today. Now a quick tip: if anytime you are asked to configure a network, for example, let's take this network for example, and let's say PC1 or PC4 is not able to communicate to printer 1, the best thing for you to do is to first do the bottom up approach. I use a bottom up approach where you start from, let's say, the PC, check its IP configuration, then go to the switch, check if the interface, that interface or the SVI is open or is connected, is running on the right network, it has been assigned the right IP address, and then you go to the router. Then you check if the router also has the right network configurations and the right the right VLANs, the DHCP routes, any routing protocol that required in that network. So that's what I do. That's like a tip that I do, and it has really helped me to complete most of my assignment and most of my task verification and troubleshooting task like way ahead of time. So yeah, that's one tip that you can use. So even you can just type show IP on your device, and then it's going to show you the configuration that you have here. So example, for this topology, we have that for this network, we can see that this PC4 has been assigned this IP address, right? And then the default gateway is this, and our default DHCP server is using this. Okay, and then you can see the lease period, which is this right here. So yeah, if you joined me to this far, congratulations. You've been able to learn how to configure DHCP on the server. on your router, sorry. You've been able to learn how to configure DHCP on your router and dynamically assign IP address to your PC, access point, your phone, and your printer. So if you want me to make more videos like this, kindly leave a comment in the comment section. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your techniques, how you go about setting up your DHCP server, or anything that you think I should make a video on in the next coming weeks. I'll be grateful if you leave a comment in the comment section. Well, I've been Bismarck, and as usual, keep learning, keep studying, keep exploring, stay curious. That's the only way that you're going to make it, right? And above everything, right, I want you to take critical note of the basics, understand the basics, understand what each command does. That's the only way you can go forward. Okay, so thank you very much for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed everything, and I really hope that it was as easy as I intended for it to be. Well, thank you, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.